guys, welcome back to Ironside Ranch. Really appreciate y'all watching us today. We've got a couple special guests with us. We got Chris from over at Financial Fitness, and then we got Travis from On-Site Trav. And so we're gonna be talking a little bit today about real estate. And before I forget, if you guys have not liked and subscribed to the video, please do that, or subscribe to the channel. I'll post a link down in the description for both of their channels so y'all can jump over there. Go subscribe to Chris. They talk about everything over there from real estate to how Chris's shoulders look so freaking buff in video. He goes over all of it. If you want to see him without a shirt on, he's on there too. Travis, I'm sorry, I just was introduced to your channel the other day, so I haven't got to watch a lot of what you're talking about over there. But I know that you talk about some financial stuff. That's what I'd seen on there. So we'll get into a little bit more of what Travis does here. But really what we want to do is we want to talk about some real estate. Chris has investment properties. All three of our wives are licensed real estate agents. And so we all make some income or all of our income via real estate. So we wanted to talk a little bit about how to get started with that, whether it's rental properties or farmland, and kind of go into some of the nitty gritty on that. So with that being said, how you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing great.
Good.
To be honest with you guys, I caught the last one with you guys and Jack, Nobody Special Finance. And I thought it was hilarious. It was so funny. The ninja was on. So yeah, great job on that one.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. And thanks for Chris for hosting that one. So I guess, one of the big barrier for real estate is always the capital for it, right? So whether you're buying a residential property or whether you're looking at buying farmland, the big issue is always figuring out the capital. How do we fund this project? And so I guess we can probably start there. Chris, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how you're funding for some of those rental properties that you've done, how you got started with the first one, right? The first one's always the hardest.
First one is the hardest. That is for sure. And that's the reason why most people don't get into it. They wait, and they save their money, and they go look at houses, and they never just go do it. It doesn't matter. If you lose money on the first one, you won't on the next one. I'm serious. We did okay on the first one. It wasn't, we didn't knock it out of the park. I was probably out maybe $3,000 to $6,000. On the first one. I try to get paid at the closing table, and I'm not trying to act like no money down. Every deal's different, but it's hard to screw up real estate. It really is. I'm doing a series on real estate on my channel. I've got 5 videos up about real estate, and it's really just what I do. It's really I guess what I'd say first is find a property that is in a neighborhood that you like. Okay? You find the property, it's devalued, it's undervalued, it's got some problems, and then check it out, walk around it, see what's going on, and then see what it would rent for.
Yeah, I know as a general rule, whenever you're buying real estate, you make your money on the purchase of the property. You make your money on the buy. Yeah, I mean, you might cash your check at the sale or when you're getting those rental incomes coming in, but looking for the good deals on it and that sort of thing is always kind of the better option. Problem is that you run into a lot of things that are kind of dilapidated and or at least somewhat run down to where it can be hard to get traditional financing for it. And if you don't, if you haven't saved up $150,000 cash, it can be hard to get started in that. Did you, when you bought your first one, did you do a bank loan on it, or did you do private equity financing? What did you do to get, or did you just have the capital?
I want to start from the very beginning because it's really important that people know this if they're interested. If you want to do rental properties, you need to go find a banker and you need to create a relationship with him. That's the very first thing you need to do. The second thing you need to do, maybe the first, I don't know. These two things. Do these two things first. Make a financial statement. You need a financial statement. You need to take a piece of paper with you that says everything you're worth, everything, your assets, liabilities, what you owe, all of it, and hand it to the banker and start saying, hey, look, this is what I want to do. This is what I did. Said, this is what I want to do. I'm going to buy rental properties, and they're going to cash flow, and you're going to get to do all my transactions. And he looked at the paper, and he looked at it. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, what do you mean, okay? He said, yeah.
Nice.
It was that simple.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to rewind a little more. The first time, I didn't know anything. I walked in the bank and said, hey, I want to do rental properties. They told me no. I was like, why did I? And it was devastating. My wife didn't want to do it anymore, but we weren't prepared. You have to do their job for them. You have to do all the numbers, find the property, find what it rents for, find what it's worth, the work it needs, run the numbers, taxes, all that, what it costs to be in it, and what your bottom line is every month. And present that to the bank, and they will work with you. It's all about the deal. If you have a good deal, you don't have to have money. That's where I screwed up the biggest, is I waited. I waited and saved and waited and saved. I didn't even have to use my own money.
No, that I mean, that's a good point. And there's always two ends of the spectrum, right? There's the Dave Ramsey of like, hey, absolutely don't borrow money ever, and then you got the Robert Kiyosaki on the other end, which is, borrow as much money as you possibly can borrow from other people, and then go beg and plead for more. And so it's you got both ends of that spectrum on it. And one of our strategies is always using debt in kind of a calculated way, because debt is, I always tell people, it's like a hammer with a handle made out of razor blades. It's going to cut you every time it swings, and the bigger the handle, the bigger the hammer, the more it's going to cut. So it's the debt can really be crippling, but it can also be a very useful tool, and in a lot of ways can get you ahead. Using that successfully with businesses and wrapping those things in LLCs is something that we'll be talking about a little bit on our channel here in the coming months, on kind of how we approach that. Because we have cash flowing businesses that have proven to be successful, it's not very difficult for us to go out to the bank and say, hey, can we get a loan to do these projects, and they'll allow it. Travis, what have you seen? I know y'all, like you said, you work in real estate. What are you seeing as far as from a financing standpoint, or is that generally an option for people, or is that most of people's head?
Yeah, so we're in Southwest Florida, and it's become like its own country down here. And we have so many immigrants coming in that every home down here is on the market for 4 to 7 days, and they are all cash offers.
Oh, wow.
Straight up. Yeah. And the pricing is way higher than it was 3 or 4 years ago, no doubt. Now, that's not to say that these people aren't financing them, but to get the deals kind of locked in because they're on the market for such a short period of time, most people are coming down and they're the backside of 50, early 60s, these people. Not a lot of 40s, not a lot of 30-year-olds.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and they're coming down from another area where they're selling a home in Ohio, New York, etc. And the home value up there is worth more than the previous home value here. And they're going, hey, I'm trading a 3-bedroom down there to get a 4-bedroom down here. I'm willing to go up 100, 150 grand. I'll still have extra cash.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is they're just, most of them are cash. Some of them are loaning against retirement accounts to get the deal done. So that way they're cash offer, but they've got the equity to support it. And then after they close on the property, sometimes they'll wrap that into a new mortgage to get their cash back.
Gotcha.
But down here, it's a totally different market. Chris and I were talking a couple weeks ago. It's a totally different market than where Chris is at. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I live in what you'd call a linear market. Everything's just kind of stays the same. The last time in 2008, when everything went belly up, this place kind of stayed the same. Mm-hmm. It went down a little bit, but we had natural gas. We had other things that kind of pushed us up. Mm-hmm. And we just what Travis is experiencing is what you would call, it's not cyclical. I'd say it's a hybrid market. It's the grand passage to Florida.
Because it's like we've got people coming from all over the world here.
Yeah, you certainly do. And DeSantis, being as politically, I guess, the way he is right now politically, is actually driving some people in there. It's what it looks like from the real estate sales, is that people that are saying, hey, I want a really conservative governor. We saw the Daily Wire, pick up and move operations to Tennessee, but they opened up a studio in Florida as well, simply because of for political reasons. So that's certainly affecting it. I would think the market there, and people just thinking, and that now where Florida used to be kind of a swing state, is becoming a very conservative state. I think that's probably changing the landscape a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. And then there's a demographic of retiring baby boomers. Yeah. And some of these people delayed retirement in 08 because they're like, oh, man, 08 happened, But now they're 67, they're coming anyway, Yeah. So, whether they're up or down 50% on their retirement savings, they're coming. It's just, are they getting a condo or are they getting a house? And so they're building at this point as fast as they can. And in our area, they're improving the infrastructure along with it, but there's still delays. I mean, traffic is a lot worse than it used to be, and everyone that's native is kind of like, man, this is totally different. I mean, post-pandemic or post the pandemic occurring, there hasn't been a stop.
Yeah. So let's go back real quick to what Chris was saying about the having the budget and the numbers and everything worked out. So that's one of the things that we've talked about on my channel with some of our business building videos. In that the lifeblood of your business is always going to be your cash flow and creating those cash flow and understanding where that money goes. And when I see businesses fail or businesses that are struggling, it's always one of the big things that I see is this kind of fluctuation that they don't really know what's coming in and what's going out of their money. They don't know how to read their P&L sheets. They don't know if they even have one coming in. And, they don't know that their accountant's supposed to provide that every month. And so that's one of the things that we kind of see on that. So from that standpoint, as far as setting up, if you're trying to set up like this rental portfolio and everything, and you're trying to get this thing built, are you guys doing that now? Or I guess specifically to Chris, are you doing that now when you go into a banker to get a loan for another property? Are you saying, hey, I've got this business now that's cash flowing, that's got 5, 10 rental properties in it, and this is my number spreadsheet? Or do you just have this relationship that you've been building to where you can just go in there and say, hey, this is a property, this is what I want to buy?
I'll bring him everything he needs, is in what the house is appraised for, what it will appraise for, what it's worth, how much work it needs. And if the deal's good, then, actually, if it's not good, he didn't even get to look at it. The deal's going to be good before I bring it there. But what we try to do is, normally they ask you for like 20% down. I would never do that. That's ridiculous. I would go in and there's a cost to fix it up, so I would add that into the project, and they would fund 85% of that. Okay. And you can inflate that bid. You can inflate that bid to where you don't have to. You get paid at the closing table. If you get contractors to go out there and bid it, and you do it yourself, you get to keep that money that they gave you to fix it up. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of people. There's other ways to do it as well. If you were the Dave Ramsey type, I don't care for Dave Ramsey at all. None whatsoever. The only thing he's good at is staying out of credit card debt.
That's funny because Ninja can't stand him either. I think that's interesting because we've done actually fairly strictly Dave Ramsey principles for a long time, and only over the last 4 or 5 years have we kind of started moving away and moving into plans that utilize debt and get us out of the system, because his system again is very against like gold and silver and crypto and stuff like that, which you and I've gone on about that before. But anyways, I digress. That's you're
well. Dave Ramsey plays not to lose.
Yeah.
He doesn't play to win. Mm-hmm. You don't. He's selling bonds. He gets paid to sell people bonds.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I don't like him.
In his defense, because I've given him a lot of criticism, a lot. I went through the whole Ramsey program as a kid. My parents put the whole family through it. He's teaching for the masses that are not interested in finance or economics. And if you're not interested in finance or economics, just stick with what Ramsey says. It'll work fine, and you'll have financial peace, which is what he's selling.
Like buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds?
He's just saying there's dollar cost.
No, I'm serious.
And don't worry about it and have a 30-year perspective.
Is that what you should do right now, is buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds?
No, definitely not. But to his point, like my parents are very Dave Ramsey, and for them, it's got them to multimillionaires. They're multimillionaires.
Well, the thing about Dave Ramsey's model is Dave Ramsey's model does not create other Dave Ramseys, right? Like Robert Kiyosaki, if you follow his principles, his goal is to make more of himself, more people that are multi-millionaires. Where Dave Ramsey is like, well, you'll be financially peaceful and you'll have a couple $1 million in retirement, but you're not going to have $40 million and be able to fly on a private jet somewhere just because you feel like spending the money on it. And so they're two very different models. and somebody said it best to me. One of my friends, he said, Dave Ramsey is AA for the financial world, and the problem with AA is AA assumes that everybody's an alcoholic, and so Dave Ramsey assumes that everybody has the same problems that he had going into his issues. But we're digressing a little bit off of the real estate track, which is
that's for sure.
fine. I'll let the conversation go where it needs to go, but. I guess let me wrap this back into to real estate a little bit here. Travis, you would mention while we were talking offline here that you would want to speak a little bit about some of the farmland stuff and some of those things. You want to tell me, talk a little bit about some of the problems some of your viewers have had with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my viewers are more my demographic, like 20s, young 30s maybe, but mainly 20-year-old guys. And a lot of them are entrepreneurial, running their own thing. And so for me, I was always interested in real estate as a young kid, always interested in real estate. I always had my own business. I mean, from the time I was like 15, I always had my own business. So I always had my own tax returns, but I never had W-2s. And so it kept me out of real estate in a way, because when I was starting to build a credit score in 08, 09, 010, just through a couple credit cards, some bank credit cards and just like real small, and you extend the credit limit. Now you got, then you finance like one machine, you pay it off or something like that, maybe a lawnmower or something just to get that credit going on. But I never had awesome tax returns. I had good top line revenue, but I was always zeroing out my revenue as best I could. Right. So when I got into real estate, I went a different way with my wife, where we went to like the 6-acre property thing, because we knew that we wanted to grow food and we wanted to do RV pads for rentals. So and we're in like a vacation area, so people tow in their RVs and there's never enough spots. And so I was like, hey, I'll do the Airbnb thing, and then I'll maybe do a warehouse and do some storage and things like that. So I've always been interested more on the commercial side of things, like storage lots and larger pieces of land that you could do things with. And my mom growing up would always say, you want to buy nurseries. And I think that's why I got into landscaping and eventually bobcat services and things, is because she was always like, you always want to buy around nurseries, because that's where the town will grow to. And it's been true. I've watched nursery after nursery turn into a storage lot and a bunch of houses around. And so I thought, okay, well, this is cool. Now it gives me a tax write-off. I can grow plants, all these things. So I went that route. And my question to you was, I recently saw a documentary called The Biggest Little Farm, about a couple that lived in an apartment and felt the real urge to get out on some land. She was a chef. He was a videographer for Discovery Channel. And so they're just city working people. And they just felt this need to get out to the land and start farming and growing things. And he basically did this documentary over 7 years, and then finally shipped it, I think, recently in the last year or two. But when they went out, they bought a 220-acre piece of land, and they went out and got investors and turned it into a business. And I looked at all the cash flows. They got egg sales, they got animal sales, they got like 400 or 200 varieties of different plants. And it took them 7 years to get this thing really working. And they said we had the right investors. They got compost sales. They've got a YouTube channel. They've got they have all these streams of income. And so I saw your content, and I thought, I want to ask you about that, because it seems like I get a lot of questions from guys like, Trav, I want to do what you're doing. Like, I want to build a 6-acre property, or I want to build or whatever. And I go, hey man, would you be okay doing like a 60-acre property or something larger where you can go out, raise capital and do it? And they're all like, I never thought about that. And so yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it's kind of funny because somebody had asked me about that in the comments the other day on one of my videos, and so I've actually got a video coming out next week giving kind of a broad overview of our farm and how we take advantage of our land here. So I'll just kind of give the brief rundown of that. But what we have done is basically similar to what you're talking about, where you create multiple streams of income. And so we've got the sawmill for the farm. And, that was our stimulus money that we got, that our fake money from the government. We took that out and bought a real sawmill, and I can cut custom mantle beams out of white oak for people's fireplaces that are, they'll sell for $900. I mean, it's unreal. It doesn't take long to cut them at all. And simply because we have the forest here, we have the land, and we knew we had to cut the trees, we might as well use them. I can only burn so much firewood, especially we're in Alabama. I don't have to go through a lot of fire. I go through about 3/4 of firewood a year. So there was only so much of that you could do, and down south there's not much call for firewood as far as from a financial perspective, because it's $100 for a load of wood. It's not, and that's delivered in stacks, so it's a lot of work to make any money on that. So we had to look at what our options are. we have a small plot of land here. Ours is only 20 acres. And what we realized is that on 20 acres, we have to run heritage breed cows because they're more efficient than commercial breed cows. I don't run, Brahmas because they take up way too much space. We run Florida crackers. I drive down to Florida a couple times a year, go down to St. Augustine and go pick up Florida crackers. And so we run a heritage breed cattle. We run pigs because pigs are very efficient on land. I could run more pigs than I could ever sell on this piece of property here. If they're managed correctly, pigs are very efficient on the land. And then kind of the same thing with chickens. On 20 acres, you can run about a $60,000 a year income on pasture poultry. That's running it 6 months out of the year. That's on broiler chickens, not including egg chickens. Egg chickens would be another source of revenue. And then we also have our other businesses that we run in the real estate world, and so that brings in some income as well. But that was kind of our idea: is how do we capitalize on the land that we have? How do we capitalize on what we use? And this goes into, if you read any of Joe Salatin's books on You Can Farm, where he talks about that you should be looking at farmland as not something that you necessarily need to own, but something that you need to manage. So you can find great deals on leasing, and leasing, by the way, is 100% tax deductible, whereas your ownership payment of it to actually own the property is not. I don't want to say a mortgage because it's not really a mortgage through land, but that's not full. Only the interest is tax deductible. So the leasing does have some advantages. And there's so much land out there to lease for just going and asking, and it's pennies on the dollar to lease it. It doesn't cost very much to lease it. And if you manage it well, the landowner's value goes up. So you can find land for free if you manage it well and have a good reputation around. So that's what I encourage people to do. I encourage people to not go into debt. If you want to take on investors to buy land for farming, that's one thing. But going into debt to buy land for farming is very risky, simply because farmland takes a while to start cash flowing. So it's kind of the difference from residential real estate, where it immediately is cash flowing because within a month I can have a renter in there, right? I can clean it up and get a renter in there, and that's harder to do on farmland. The other reason is farmland, you have to change your mindset on your budget. Everything is an annual budget, not a monthly budget like most businesses, but an annual budget in farming. That's why we buy our diesel fuel once a year. So if that kind of, I don't want to take up too much time, but that's kind of a brief rundown on how we do it.
Yep. What would you say for a guy getting going, wanting to do that, go that route? Because there are so many ways, especially if you're in an area where you could do RV pads or make it. I mean, I see a lot of these wedding venues around my area popping up, large old citrus farms, beautiful farms. They erect a brand new barn, and all of a sudden they got like a $10,000 weekend venue with a little guest house for the wedding party or whatnot.
Yeah, we've actually got a B&B that we're building on our place right now just for that purpose, so that we can, again, it's one more source of cash flow. And with any business, having one source of cash flow is not a good idea. So you want to have, it's much better to have 5 different cash flow venues that each produce 5,000 to 10,000 than one that produces 50,000, right? So that's basically what we're trying to do on our farm. Is kind of mimic those principles on it and bring a bunch of things in. So if somebody came to me and said, hey, I think I want to start doing a ranch, start leading this kind of more self-sufficient lifestyle and making a little bit of money, I would probably encourage them to start with where they're at right now. And if they're living in an apartment, go find somebody that has 5 acres that you can start on. You can start on 5 acres, and you can raise a lot of food on 5 acres. And you may not be doing cows, but you can certainly do some sheep, and sheep sell. Goats don't, but sheep do. Goats are hard to sell, but you can do sheep, you can do pigs, and you can have a good pastured operation there that you can sell locally. You partner with people that are doing microgreens, people that are doing farmers markets around and stuff like that, and start making one of the CSA boxes, things along those lines. So I would encourage people to not go into debt until they've established the cash flow. When you have established cash flow and you want to take out a business loan, that's a different story, but don't do it before you have that established cash flow. To me, that's too risky, and I've seen too many people fail with it.
Why won't goats sell?
Goats, there doesn't seem to be a lot of money in them. I know people that make money on them, and they make good money on them, but even when you start dealing with like the Jewish and the halal markets to try to sell goats, they prefer to get the lamb, man. And I think that's kind of cultural to the U.S., but because goat, you can sell Chevin anywhere else in the world, you just can't sell it in the U.S. We just don't eat it. People don't think to eat goats. When I was in Afghanistan, they ate a ton of goats over there. We had goat meat all the time, but goats just don't seem to sell very well here. It's hard to make money on them. And they also, goats are a pain because they test fences really bad. I can keep all my cattle in one hot wire. I got one hot wire right now, 3 feet off the ground, and keeping all my cows in. And it's not even hot right now. They don't test it. We have a perimeter fence that goes around the farm, so nothing escapes outside of that. But all the interior fencing is just one hot wire, and we never have issues with them. With goats, you can't keep goats in with 8 hot wires that are that far apart. They won't stay in. They'll squeeze through it, push through it. They don't care about getting shocked. I mean, we're zapping 8,000 volts through them, and they don't care. I mean, and you touch it, it'll hit you like a hammer and knock you down. And what we finally found to keep the goats in is you run the hot wires and you run it one hot to one ground wire every other one, and then that way when they stick their head through, it's like holding on to both those little buzzers at the same time.
Oh, wow.
That'll but because otherwise you have to, for goats, you have to use goat wire, which is just the woven wire, but that's really expensive to do a whole farm with that, so you can't make it efficient.
Okay. All right. That makes some sense. I had a subscriber who actually did goat land clearing in sensitive areas. I didn't believe it until I checked out his stuff. And he's like, yeah, those areas you can't get a forestry mulching machine in, like clear out because they won't let you. He's like, dude, I've got a herd of goats and I'll rent them out and we'll go set up some temporary fences. I'm not sure how he's keeping them in, but he'll let them graze out, say, a wet area, and then he can bring his machines in once they've kind of done the work. And
that's actually it's called goatscaping. It's kind of a popular thing, and it works fairly well if you've got good, well-trained goat herds that'll stay into the hot wires, and if they get well-trained. We do it actually with pigs, because pigs, rather than eating the tops off of them, they root up the roots on it, and they'll tear the stumps and everything apart. And so Chinese privet, the goats will eat it down, but the privet will grow right back, and it's very invasive here. The pigs will rip it completely out of the ground, and they'll take root balls. I mean, from trees that are that thick, and they'll a 300-pound pig will tear that apart in no time. So
good education.
Let's see. I know we went off on some tangents here. Chris, is there anything that you wanted to add to some of that what we were talking about with the business and the cash flow?
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to talk about real estate in a Zoom call. We're going to need to. I'd like to do more with you, but we're going to need to probably do like how do we find houses and really talk about that, and then do how do we get financing and talk about that, because this is there's a lot of information on it, and I've learned a lot. So, if you're really interested, if anybody on here is really interested, start with your financial statement. Get that worked out. All that is, I've got a copy of it, a mock copy that I use. I can go get it. It's printed out right over there. All it is your assets minus your liabilities, and that's what you're worth, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's what the bank's going to want to know. Because if you go up there and just tell them, hey, I want to do rental property, and they're not going to mess with you. So go ahead and establish that and get a couple of them. I mean, go to 2 or 3 different banks, find the people that want to work with you, and then you're set. You've got your banker on board. You're looking for an undervalued property, and I'm really not trying to encourage anybody to get into it right now. We're at all-time highs. I'm selling rental properties right now. So that's why I haven't been talking about it very much on my channel, because I get pumped up about it, because it's like, that's what I want to do. I plan on having 100 rentals after this crash.
Yeah, I'm with you, 100% with you. After this crash, I'm going to be buying as much as I can. I'm trying to get another couple hundred acres and buy as much land as I can possibly get my hands on.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great plan, Chris. I think that, if we want to do this again, I think next time maybe we just talk, financing or how to buy the house or what type of houses to look for, and maybe shorten these down a little bit. So for all y'all watching, if any of that sounds interesting to you, if you have topics that you'd like to discuss, just post it down in the comment box below, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I don't want to keep this going on too long, so I think we probably ought to get wrapping up. Is there anything either y'all wanted to discuss before we kind of close this down?
No, I'm good. I got my question answered. Basically, for my guys, start out, just get going with it, and then look to purchase or work a deal later on once you've got some cash flow coming from the business operations. Turn it into a real estate play.
Yep, absolutely, Chris.
Because if you know where you need to be, if you know what the banker expects, and he already knows what you're about to do, and he knows you know how to run the numbers. He knows how you know how to make things cash flow. When you bring him a deal, he's got a stack of papers on his desk that thick. Yours is going to go on top because you're easy. Yep. He already knows your deal. All he's got to do is grab it and say, oh, yeah, okay, good. And it's like that. And like I said, I like to get a little bit of money up front from them, factor that in the deal, you know. And I don't steal properties, but you got to get them. The numbers have to work, you know. Yep. And we can talk about that too. That would probably be really a good thing for everybody to really run the numbers down. Well, we can talk about the different ways.
I'm with you, Chris. I think if we can get the Economic Ninja on here, I know he's talked a lot about done a lot with real estate. He might be good to get on here to talk about some of that too at some point in time. But we'll look at that for the next one, and we'll do, because my wife, you know, she does her real estate video once a week on our channel, and so we'll have this add this to the repertoire there. Other than that, the last thing I do want to give you a chance, Chris, to plug is that event in Denver. If you want to talk about that at all, did you want to mention that and just kind of plug it real fast?
Absolutely. Me and the Economic Ninja, Joe Brown with Heresy Financial, Jim Lewis with Wall Street Silver, Rob Keynes, and Dave Kranzler with Investment Research Dynamics. There's the analyst and nobody special. This thing's getting bigger all the time. We're going to be in Denver on January 8th at 5 p.m. I'll send you the link, or you might already have the link, and you can put it in the description.
Send it to me, please.
Yeah, and you just let us know you're coming. We're getting really close to full, if we're not already full. So we're there. If we're not there, we're close. If you're interested, you better jump on it pretty quick.
Okay. Well, I'll post the information down in the description. Guys, if you haven't already, please, like I said, go over to both their channels and go like some of their videos, subscribe, share their videos. Guys, sharing is the best way to give back to us and to kind of help us out and get the word out on some of this information we're all trying to put out there. So, and please subscribe so you get those notifications and hit those stupid bells, because subscribing doesn't seem to mean much. But other than that, we'll go ahead and close this down. We will be doing more of these, and we'll talk a little bit more real estate and get more into the weeds. So if there's stuff that you'd like to know, please post it down into the comment box. Other than that, we'll close this out. Thanks again for watching.